They say that pride is a mirror that only shows you what you want to see. Claire looked into that mirror every day. She saw a star. She saw a self-made titan. She saw everyone else as shadows. At the city's most exclusive gala, Claire did the unthinkable. She introduced her husband, the man who held her hand through 5 years of struggle, as the help. She sat him at the staff table, tucked away behind the velvet curtains. But Sam didn't argue. He didn't shout. He simply sent a single text. "Tell them I'm your husband." Claire deleted it without a second thought. She didn't realize that in that moment she wasn't just deleting a message. She was deleting her future. Because the man she called a driver was the man who owned the very room she was trying to impress. So sit back, witness the audit, and subscribe to Sovereign Truth. Let us begin. The drive to the Grandmont Hotel was silent. Not the comfortable silence of two people who knew each other. The careful silence of two people who didn't want to disturb the air between them. Sam's hands rested on the steering wheel, steady and practiced. Claire sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through her phone with the urgency of someone preparing for war. She adjusted her makeup in the visor mirror. Her dress was perfect. Midnight blue silk that cost more than most people's rent. Her heels were sharp enough to draw blood. She looked like power. She felt like victory. Sam glanced at her briefly, then back at the road. He said nothing. He had learned over the past year that words were wasted on moments like this. The Grandmont Hotel rose into view like a monument to ambition. Marble columns, crystal chandeliers visible even from the street, a red carpet lined with photographers who only aimed their lenses at people who mattered. Claire's breath quickened. This was it. The Sterling and Hale annual gala. The room where deals were made and careers were born. The room where Claire Dawson would finally be seen as more than just a rising star. Tonight, she would be untouchable. Sam pulled the car to the valet lane. A young man in a red vest approached, opened Claire's door with a practiced smile. Claire stepped out, her heels clicking against the pavement like a countdown. She didn't look back at Sam. She didn't say, "Thank you." She was already scanning the crowd, looking for the faces that mattered. Sam handed the keys to the valet, walked around the car, and stood beside her. For a moment, they looked like a couple, but only for a moment. Claire turned to him, her smile bright and cold. "Stay close. I might need you to hold something." Sam nodded. He followed her up the red carpet, 2 steps behind, exactly where she wanted him. Inside, the ballroom was a cathedral of wealth. Gold-trimmed walls, tables draped in white linen, ice sculptures shaped like corporate logos melting slowly under warm lights. Executives moved through the room like sharks in tailored suits. Claire's eyes lit up. She saw Gregory Hale near the bar, surrounded by men in charcoal gray. She saw Julia Reeves by the windows, laughing with a group of investors. Julia. Claire's jaw tightened. Julia was the only person in the room who could steal what Claire had worked for. The VP promotion, the corner office, the seat at the table where the real decisions were made. Claire had to outshine her tonight. She turned to Sam, her voice low and sharp. "Wait here. I need to make an entrance." Sam didn't move. He simply watched as Claire walked into the crowd, her chin high, her shoulders back. She was a lioness entering the savannah, and everyone else was prey. An executive named Thomas Langford spotted her first. He was older, silver-haired, with the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. He raised his glass as she approached. "Claire Dawson, the woman who saved the Meridian Project." Claire's smile widened. "I just cleaned up a few mistakes, Thomas. Nothing heroic." Thomas laughed, a sound like gravel in a blender. Modest and brilliant, dangerous combination. Another executive joined them, a younger man named Ben Carter. He shook Claire's hand with the enthusiasm of someone trying to impress. "We've been following your work. That zoning loophole you found? Genius." Claire's eyes sparkled. This was the fuel she lived on. Recognition, validation, proof that she was exactly who she believed herself to be. "It's all about reading the fine print," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "Most people don't have the patience." Thomas gestured toward the bar. "Let me get you a drink. Champagne?" "Perfect." As they turned toward the bar, Claire felt a presence behind her. She glanced back. Sam was standing a few feet away, hands clasped in front of him, watching. Claire's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. Then she turned back to Thomas. "Actually, before we do that..." She raised her voice just slightly, enough for the small group to hear. "Let me introduce you to Sam." Sam stepped forward. Thomas and Ben turned, polite but uninterested. Claire's smile was radiant. "This is Sam. He's my driver tonight." The words landed like stones in still water. Thomas blinked. Ben's smile froze. Sam's expression didn't change. Thomas recovered first, his smile widening into something cruel and amused. "Your driver? Well, that's efficient. Always good to have reliable help." Ben chuckled, a sound like breaking glass. "At least he knows his place." Claire laughed. It was light, musical, perfectly calibrated. She didn't look at Sam's eyes. She looked at his hands. She reached into her purse, pulled out her coat, a sleek black cashmere wrap she'd been carrying. She handed it to him without a glance. "Sam, could you take this? The staff table is just past the velvet curtains. You'll be more comfortable there." She didn't look at his face. She looked at his hands as they took the coat. She looked at him like a hanger, not a human. Thomas grinned. "Well trained, I see." Claire turned back to the executives, her voice warm and effortless. "Shall we get that champagne?" They walked away, and Sam stood there, holding her coat, the weight of the fabric in his hands, the rustle of her dress fading into the hum of conversation, the faint scent of her perfume, jasmine and ambition, lingering in the air. He didn't move for 3 seconds. Then he turned and walked toward the velvet curtains. What Claire didn't know, what she couldn't see because she was too busy being seen, was that the man she just handed her coat to like a piece of furniture had signed the contract that built her empire. The Meridian project she'd saved. Sam had pre-negotiated the terms with the city council 2 months before Claire ever saw the file. The zoning loopholes she'd discovered. Sam had written the legal brief that revealed it, left it on her desk at 2 in the morning while she slept. Every brilliant move Claire made was built on scaffolding she never saw, and the man holding that scaffolding was now sitting behind a velvet curtain, watching his wife shine in a spotlight he built. But he wasn't angry. Not yet. He was observing, recording, conducting an audit, and Claire had just failed the first question. The staff table was exactly where Claire said it would be, behind the velvet curtains, tucked into a corner where the ballroom lights didn't quite reach. A folding table with paper napkins, plastic chairs, a pitcher of water, no ice. Sam sat down. He draped Claire's coat over the back of the chair. He looked out through the gap in the curtains. He could see her. She was laughing now, champagne in hand, surrounded by men in expensive suits. She gestured as she spoke, animated and confident. She looked like she belonged there, and maybe she did. But not for the reasons she thought. Sam pulled out his phone. He typed carefully, his thumbs moving with precision. "Tell them I'm your husband. Then I'll reconsider, and we'll go home." He stared at the message for 5 seconds. Then he pressed send. The timestamp read 8:47 p.m. He set the phone on the table, face up, waiting. Claire felt the buzz in her purse. She ignored it. Thomas was mid-sentence, talking about a new development in the financial district. She nodded, laughed at the right moments, made eye contact with the precision of a sniper. Her phone buzzed again. She glanced down just for a second. A text from Sam. She swiped it away without reading. Not now, not tonight. Tonight was hers. Sam watched the screen. Read 8:49 p.m. No reply. He set the phone back down. He didn't text again. He simply waited. A woman approached the staff table. She was younger than Claire, mid-30s, with sharp eyes and a tailored gray suit that suggested competence over flash. Julia Reeves. She held a glass of white wine in one hand, her phone in the other. She glanced at Sam, then at the staff table, then back at Sam. Her brow furrowed. "This doesn't look right." Sam looked up. "What doesn't?" Julia gestured at the setup. "You? Here, at the staff table." She pulled out the empty chair across from him, sat down without asking. "I've been to enough of these things to know when someone's been misplaced." Sam's expression remained neutral. "I'm exactly where I was told to be." Julia studied him. His posture was too straight. His suit, though understated, was tailored, expensive. His hands were steady, no fidgeting, no nervous energy. This was not a man who drove cars for a living. "What do you do?" she asked. "Asset management." "For whom?" "Private clients." Julia leaned back, her eyes narrowing. "You're being vague." "I'm being polite." She smiled. It was the first genuine smile Sam had seen all night. "Fair enough. I'm Julia. I work with Claire." "I know." "She talks about you?" "She talks about everyone." Julia laughed, a short, surprised sound. "That's accurate." She took a sip of wine, still watching him. "So why are you sitting at the staff table if you manage assets?" Sam didn't answer immediately. He glanced through the gap in the curtains. Claire was still holding court, her hands moving as she spoke, her voice rising above the hum of the room. "Because that's where I was asked to sit." Julia followed his gaze. She saw Claire. She saw the executives surrounding her, and something clicked. "Wait. You're—" Before she could finish, Claire appeared. Her heels struck the floor like a gavel. Her face was tight, her smile gone. "Sam." Her voice was sharp enough to cut glass. Sam looked up. Julia stood, sensing the shift in the air. Claire's eyes flicked to Julia, then back to Sam. "I asked you to wait by the coat check. Ms. Reeves doesn't have time for small talk." Julia blinked. "Actually, we were having a fascinating conversation." Claire's laugh was bright and hollow. "He's charming, I know, but he's here to work, not network." She didn't look at Sam when she said it. She looked at Julia, establishing hierarchy, reasserting control. Julia's jaw tightened. She glanced at Sam, then back at Claire. "Right, of course." She set her wine glass on the table. "Excuse me." She walked away. And Claire turned to Sam, her voice low and venomous. "Stay. Here." She didn't wait for a response. She turned on her heel and walked back into the light. Sam watched her go. He didn't say a word. He simply sat back down, picked up his phone, and continued the audit. What Claire didn't tell Thomas or Ben or anyone else in that room was that the design she was pitching, the revolutionary headquarters concept that had executives leaning in with interest, had 17 errors when she first submitted it. Load-bearing miscalculations, zoning code violations, material cost overruns that would have bankrupted the project before groundbreaking. She never saw them. Sam did. 2 nights ago at 2:47 a.m., while Claire slept in their king-sized bed, Sam sat at the kitchen table with a red pen and a laptop. He corrected the load-bearing formulas. He cross-referenced the zoning codes with the city's updated ordinances. He renegotiated the material contracts with suppliers who owed him favors from projects Claire would never know about. By the time the sun rose, the design was flawless. By the time Claire woke up, the corrected file was on her desk with a note that said, "Looked good. Minor tweaks. S." She never asked what the tweaks were. She never questioned how a design that took her 3 weeks to draft was suddenly investor-ready overnight. She just took it, presented it, and basked in the applause. Now, as she stood in the center of that ballroom, gesturing toward a projected rendering of the headquarters, talking about her attention to detail and her innovative approach, Sam sat 20 feet away in the shadows. He wasn't angry. He was cataloging. Every word she said that wasn't hers. Every success she claimed that he had built. Every lie she told without even knowing it was a lie. She was selling a masterpiece she couldn't even read. He was the author. She was just the ink. An hour passed. Claire moved through the room like a conductor leading an orchestra. She touched arms, leaned in during conversations, laughed at jokes that weren't funny. She was performing, and she was good at it. Sam stayed at the staff table. A waiter brought him water. Not champagne. Water. No ice. Sam thanked him. The waiter looked confused, as if gratitude from this table was unexpected. Sam took a sip. The water was lukewarm. Across the room, Julia stood near the bar, watching Claire. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The man at the staff table, Sam, didn't fit. His posture, his tone, his eyes. He didn't look at Claire the way an employee looks at a boss. He looked at her the way a scientist looks at a failed experiment. Julia pulled out her phone, opened LinkedIn. She typed, Samuel Mercer. The search loaded. 3 results. One was a college kid in Ohio. One was a retired consultant in Florida. The third result had no photo, just a name. Samuel J. Mercer. Position, private investor. Location, unlisted. Julia clicked on the profile. It was sparse. No job history, no endorsements, just one line in the bio. Focused on long-term value, not public recognition. Julia's stomach turned. She looked back at the staff table. Sam was still there, hands folded, watching. She set her phone down and made a decision. Claire was mid-conversation with Gregory Hale himself. The Gregory Hale, founder of Sterling and Hale, the man whose handshake could launch or destroy a career. He was tall, silver-haired, with a voice like aged whiskey. Claire, I've been impressed with your trajectory. Bold moves, calculated risks. Claire's heart was hammering, but her voice stayed smooth. I just try to see what others miss, Mr. Hale. That's a rare skill. He paused, looked at her with an appraising gaze. Tell me, who taught you to think like that? Claire smiled. Trial and error, long nights, a refusal to settle. Gregory nodded slowly. And no mentors? No silent partners? Claire's smile didn't falter. I've had support, of course. But the work? That's mine. Gregory's eyes lingered on her for a moment longer than comfortable. Then he smiled. Good. Independence is valuable. Dependency is not. He raised his glass. To self-made success. Claire clinked her glass against his. To self-made success. She took a sip, her heart soaring. She didn't see Gregory's eyes shift. Didn't see him glance toward the velvet curtains. Didn't see the faint smile that crossed his face. Because Gregory Hale knew something Claire didn't. He knew exactly who Sam Mercer was. And he knew why Sam was sitting at the staff table. At 9:15 p.m., Julia approached the staff table again. This time she didn't sit. She stood in front of Sam, arms crossed. I need to ask you something. Sam looked up. Go ahead. Are you married to Claire? Sam didn't hesitate. Yes. Julia's eyes widened. Then why the hell are you sitting here? Sam's expression didn't change. Because that's where she asked me to sit. Julia stared at him. And you just did it? I did. Why? Sam leaned back in his chair. Because I wanted to see if she would correct it. Julia's breath caught. Did she? Sam's silence was answer enough. Julia shook her head, disbelief flooding her face. This is insane. It's an audit. An audit of what? Character. Julia opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked at Sam, really looked at him, and saw something she hadn't expected. Not anger, not hurt, certainty. She took a step back. You're going to ruin her, aren't you? Sam didn't answer. He simply picked up his phone. Checked the time. 9:17 p.m. No, he said quietly. She's going to ruin herself. Julia walked away. And for the first time that night, she felt something close to fear. At 9:25 p.m., Claire's phone buzzed again. She was standing near the stage, talking to an executive named Robert Chen about a potential partnership in Singapore. She felt the vibration in her purse. She ignored it. Robert was saying something about tax incentives, but Claire's focus was split. She could feel eyes on her. She glanced toward the velvet curtains. Sam was still there, still sitting, still watching. For a moment, something flickered in her chest. Not guilt, not quite, just awareness. She pushed it down, focused on Robert, smiled, laughed. perform. At 9:31 p.m., Claire excused herself. She walked toward the restroom, her heels clicking against marble. Once inside, she locked the stall door and pulled out her phone. One unread message from Sam. She opened it. "Tell them I'm your husband, then I'll reconsider, and we'll go home." Claire read it twice. Her jaw tightened. She could picture him sitting there, behind the curtains, typing this with that calm, patient expression he always wore when he thought he was making a point. She typed back quickly, "Not now. We'll talk at home." She hit send. Then she stared at the message thread. Something about it felt wrong. She scrolled up, saw texts from the past week. "Dinner's ready. I'll pick you up at 7. Do you need anything from the store?" All from him. She scrolled further. Her replies were sparse. "Okay, fine. No. One-word answers. Transactional. Cold." She closed the thread, deleted Sam's message from tonight, dropped the phone back in her purse. She looked at herself in the mirror. Her makeup was perfect. Her hair was flawless. She looked powerful. She felt powerful. So why did her chest feel tight? She took a breath, smoothed her dress, walked back out into the ballroom. At 9:40 p.m., Claire was back in the center of the room. An executive named Diana Park was asking about her background. "So where did you go to school?" "State University, business and economics." "And your family? Are they in the industry?" Claire's smile was practiced. "No, I'm first-generation professional. Everything I have, I built." Diana nodded, impressed. "That's admirable. And your husband? Is he here tonight?" Claire's smile didn't falter. "He's away. Business in Singapore." Diana raised an eyebrow. "Oh? What does he do?" "Consulting, asset management." "Interesting. What firm?" Claire's voice stayed smooth. "Private clients. He prefers to stay under the radar." Diana nodded. "The quiet type. I respect that." She gestured toward the bar. "Well, if he's away, at least you brought reliable help." "I saw your driver earlier. Very professional." Claire's chest tightened. "Yes, he's dependable." Diana smiled. "Good help is hard to find." She clinked her glass against Claire's. "To independence." Claire forced a smile. "To independence." She took a sip. The champagne tasted like ash. At 9:50 p.m., Julia found Claire near the windows. She approached carefully, her voice low. "Claire, can I talk to you for a second?" Claire turned, her smile automatic. "Of course. What's up?" Julia glanced around, made sure no one was close enough to hear. "That man at the staff table, Sam." Claire's smile tightened. "What about him? Are you sure he's just your driver?" Claire's laugh was sharp. "Julia, don't be ridiculous." "I'm serious. I talked to him. He doesn't act like someone who drives cars for a living." Claire's eyes narrowed. "What did he say to you?" "Nothing specific, but his posture, his tone, the way he talks, something's off." Claire's voice dropped, cold and precise. "Julia, I appreciate the concern, but I know who Sam is." "You don't." Julia held her gaze. "Then who is he?" Claire's jaw tightened. "He's my driver. That's all you need to know." Julia didn't look convinced, but she nodded. "Okay, just be careful." She walked away, and Claire stood there, staring at the velvet curtains. For the first time that night, doubt crept in. Not about Sam, about herself. She pushed it down, turned back to the crowd, and kept performing. At 10:05 p.m., Gregory Hale stepped onto the stage. The room began to quiet. Conversations tapered off. Champagne glasses were set down. All eyes turned toward the front. Claire's heart raced. This was it. The moment Gregory would announce the new VP. The moment her name would be called. The moment everything she'd worked for would be validated. She smoothed her dress, lifted her chin, prepared to walk to the stage. Gregory tapped the microphone. The sound echoed through the ballroom. "Good evening, everyone." Applause. Gregory waited for it to fade. "Tonight we celebrate not just the success of Sterling and Hale, but the people who make that success possible." More applause. Claire's hands were trembling. She clasped them together. Gregory's voice was calm, measured. "For the past 5 years, this company has grown beyond what I imagined. We've expanded into new markets. built projects that will define this city for decades. He paused. But none of that would have been possible without one person. Claire's breath caught. Gregory smiled. A person who chose to remain anonymous. A person who funded our most ambitious projects. A person who believed in this company when no one else did. Claire's chest swelled. Anonymous partner. That had to be an investor. Someone overseas. Someone Gregory was about to thank before announcing her promotion. She was ready. Gregory's eyes scanned the room. Tonight he's here. Silence. Complete. Suffocating. Gregory's smile widened. Sam Mercer, stand up. Claire's world stopped. Claire laughed. It was a sharp sound, brittle, like glass cracking under pressure. She looked at Gregory, then at the crowd, then toward the velvet curtains. She waited for the joke to end. It didn't. Sam stood. Slowly, deliberately. He didn't look at Claire. He looked at the future. The room turned. Every chair, every face, every breath held. Claire's champagne glass slipped from her hand. The sound of crystal hitting marble, shattering. The noise cut through the silence like a scream. Her knees buckled. She gripped the edge of the nearest table. The white linen bunched under her fingers. The table didn't hold her pride. It just kept her standing. Sam stepped out from behind the velvet curtain. His suit was simple, charcoal gray. No tie, no jewelry, nothing that screamed wealth. But the way he moved, shoulders back, head high, eyes forward, screamed authority. Every executive in the room recognized it. Power doesn't announce itself. It simply is. Sam walked toward the stage. The crowd parted, not because he asked, because they knew. Julia stood near the bar, her wine glass frozen halfway to her lips. Her eyes were wide. She looked at Claire. Claire was still gripping the table, her face drained of color. Thomas Langford, the man who'd called Sam well-trained an hour ago, went pale. Ben Carter took a step back as if distance could erase his words. Sam reached the stage. Gregory Hale extended his hand. Sam shook it, firm, brief, professional. Gregory gestured to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, Sam Mercer, the man who made this all possible." Applause erupted. Tentative at first, then louder, then deafening. Claire didn't move. She couldn't. Her brain was trying to process what her eyes were seeing and failing. Sam stood at the microphone. He didn't smile. He simply waited for the applause to fade. When the room was silent again, he spoke. His voice was calm, steady, the voice of a man who'd already made his decision. "Thank you, Gregory." He paused, looked out at the crowd. His eyes swept across the room, past Julia, past Thomas, past Ben, and landed on Claire. She froze. Sam's gaze held hers for 3 seconds. Then he looked away. "For 5 years, I've worked with Sterling and Hale as a silent partner. I funded projects. I reviewed contracts. I ensured that this company could take risks without catastrophic failure." His tone was factual. No pride, no ego, just information. "I chose to remain anonymous because I believe good work doesn't need a spotlight." He paused again. "But tonight, something happened that requires correction." The room leaned in. Claire's hands were shaking. Sam's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "My wife introduced me as her driver." Silence. No one moved. No one breathed. Sam continued. "I'd like to correct that." He looked directly at Claire now. "I'm not her driver." His voice was quiet. Final. "I'm her soon-to-be ex-husband." The room gasped. Not loudly. Just a collective intake of breath. Like air being sucked out of a vacuum. Claire's legs gave out. She sank into the nearest chair. Her dress pooled around her like spilled ink. Sam turned back to the crowd. "The house we live in is mine. Purchased before we married. Titled in my name." His tone was surgical, precise. "You have 24 hours to remove your belongings, Claire." He paused. "My lawyer is waiting outside with divorce papers. They've already been filed." He stepped back from the microphone, nodded to Gregory, and walked off the stage. No dramatic exit, no theatrics. He simply left. The room stayed silent. Then slowly the whispers began, low at first, then rising, like a tide. Did he just... She called him her driver? Oh my God. I shook his hand earlier. I told him he was well-trained. She had no idea. How do you not know your own husband owns? This is insane. Claire sat in the chair, staring at nothing. Her champagne glass was still on the floor, shattered, just like everything else. Julia was the first to move. She crossed the room, crouched beside Claire. Claire, no response. Claire, look at me. Claire's eyes slowly focused. Julia's face was a mix of shock and something that looked almost like pity. You need to leave. Now. Claire's voice was barely a whisper. I don't understand. Julia shook her head. It doesn't matter, you need to go, before this gets worse. Worse. Julia glanced around. Every executive in the room was watching, not with sympathy, with calculation. They were already measuring the damage, already deciding whether Claire was an asset or a liability. Julia helped Claire to her feet. Claire's legs were unsteady. Her heels felt like stilts. Julia guided her toward the exit, past the whispering crowd, past the executives who turned away as she passed. As they reached the door, Claire heard a voice behind her. Thomas Langford, loud enough to carry. If she couldn't recognize Power sleeping beside her every night, how can we trust her judgment? Laughter, muffled, but there. Claire's chest tightened. Julia pushed the door open. They stepped into the hallway. The noise from the ballroom faded behind them. Claire leaned against the wall, her breathing shallow. Julia, what just happened? Julia didn't answer. She didn't know how. Outside the hotel, a black car was waiting. Not a limo. A sedan. Sleek. Expensive. The driver's side door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, mid-50s, gray suit, silver hair. He carried a leather briefcase. He approached Claire with the calm efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Mrs. Mercer? Claire looked up. Her voice cracked. Who are you? My name is Jonathan Sterling. I'm Mr. Mercer's attorney. He opened the briefcase, pulled out a manila folder. These are your divorce papers. They were filed this afternoon at 4:32 p.m. You'll receive official notice within 48 hours. He handed her the folder. Claire didn't take it. Julia did. Jonathan continued, his voice neutral and professional. The Mercer estate, located at 1247 Oberlin Drive, is the sole property of Samuel J. Mercer. It was purchased in 2019, prior to your marriage, and titled exclusively in his name. He pulled out another document. You have 24 hours to remove your personal belongings. After that, the locks will be changed and access will be restricted. Claire's hands were trembling. I live there. Jonathan's expression didn't change. You resided there, as of tonight. That arrangement is terminated. He pulled out a third document. The Audi Q7 currently registered under your name was a marital gift. It will be repossessed within 72 hours. Claire's voice rose. You can't just... Jonathan held up a hand. All joint accounts funded by Mr. Mercer's assets have been frozen. Effective immediately. Your personal account, which you maintained prior to marriage, remains accessible. However, any deposits made by Mr. Mercer in the past 5 years have been withdrawn and reallocated. He closed the briefcase. You'll receive a full accounting from our office within 1 week. He handed Claire a business card. If you have questions, contact my office. Mr. Mercer will not be responding to personal communications. He turned, walked back to the car, got in, and drove away. Claire stood on the sidewalk holding the business card, staring at nothing. Julia put a hand on her shoulder. Claire, we need to get you home. Claire's voice was hollow. I don't have a home. 3 weeks later, Claire sat in a conference room at Sterling and Hale. The walls were glass. The table was long and polished. She was alone. Her phone was face down on the table. It hadn't rung in days. The door opened. Gregory Hale stepped inside. He didn't sit. He stood near the door, hands in his pockets, his expression neutral. Claire. She looked up. Her eyes were tired, hollow. Mr. Hale? Gregory sighed. I'm going to be direct. Claire nodded. The board has decided to restructure your contract. Claire's stomach dropped. Restructure? Terminate. The word landed like a hammer. Gregory continued, his tone clinical. Your work has been adequate, but recent events have raised concerns about your judgment. Claire's voice was barely audible. My judgment? Gregory's eyes were cold. You didn't recognize the man funding your career. You treated him like staff, in front of clients, in front of executives. He paused. That kind of oversight suggests a fundamental flaw in perception. Claire's hands clenched. That's not fair. Gregory's voice didn't rise. Fair doesn't matter. Competence does. And right now, no one in this building believes you have it. He walked toward the door, stopped, turned back. The Meridian project you saved? Sam pre-negotiated the terms. The zoning loophole you found? He wrote the legal brief. Every major success you've had in the past 3 years, he was the one who made it possible. Claire's breath caught. Gregory's expression was unreadable. You weren't self-made, Claire. You were propped up. And now that the support is gone, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Gregory opened the door. Security will escort you out. Your desk has been cleared. You'll receive final payment by the end of the month. He left. The door closed with a soft click. Claire sat in the empty conference room, staring at the glass walls, at her reflection. She didn't recognize the woman staring back. 6 months later, Claire lived in a one-bedroom apartment in a part of the city she used to drive through without stopping. The rent was $1,200 a month. The walls were thin, the carpet was stained, but it was hers. Or at least it was all she could afford. She worked as a freelance consultant now. The projects were small. The clients were skeptical. Every email she sent got the same response. Thank you for your interest. We've decided to move in a different direction. No one said why, but she knew. The word had spread. Not loudly, not publicly, but in the quiet, efficient way that professional reputations are destroyed. A whisper here, a hesitation there. She's the one who didn't know her husband owned. Right, that Claire. No one wanted to be associated with that kind of judgment. One evening, Claire sat at her small kitchen table scrolling through LinkedIn. She'd been searching for job postings, project manager roles, consulting gigs, anything. Her search history was a graveyard of dead ends. She clicked on a notification. Sterling and Hale hosts annual charity gala. Her chest tightened. She clicked the link. Photos from the event filled the screen. Gregory Hale at the podium, executives in tailored suits, and there, near the center of one photo, was Sam. He looked the same, calm, composed. Standing beside him was Julia Reeves. She was smiling, laughing at something Sam had said. Her hand rested lightly on his arm. Claire stared at the photo. Her throat tightened, not because she was jealous, but because she understood. Julia saw what Claire never did. Julia recognized power, not because it was loud, but because it was quiet. Claire closed the laptop, sat in the dark, and for the first time in 6 months, she cried. Later that night, Claire was going through her old phone. She'd been looking for a contact, a former client who might give her a reference. She opened the backup files, scrolling through old messages, deleted texts, fragments of conversations she'd long forgotten. Then she saw it, a message from Sam. Timestamp, 8:47 p.m., the night of the gala. Tell them I'm your husband, then I'll reconsider and we'll go home. Claire stared at the screen. She opened her calendar, checked the timeline. Gregory's speech had started at 8:52 p.m., 5 minutes. Sam had sent the message 5 minutes before the reveal, before Gregory announced his name, before the room found out. He had given her a chance, one last chance, to tell the truth, to choose him, to stop the audit, and she had deleted it. Claire's hands trembled. She read the message again. Then I'll reconsider. He wasn't testing her. He was begging her not to make him do what he'd already decided to do. And she'd ignored him. Claire set the phone down, covered her face with her hands, and whispered into the silence. He was holding the delete button, and I made him press it. The next morning, Claire sat at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. Her laptop was open. An email draft sat unfinished on the screen. Subject: Inquiry regarding consulting role. She'd rewritten it 4 times. Each version sounded more desperate than the last. She closed the laptop, stared out the window. The city looked different now, not smaller, just indifferent. She used to feel like she owned it. Now she was just another person trying to survive in it. Her phone buzzed, a notification, an invoice. Rent. Due, $1,200. Due date, 3 days. Claire checked her bank account. $1,847. Enough for rent, not enough for anything else. She closed the banking app, opened LinkedIn again, scrolled through her connections. 987 connections. Not one had reached out in 6 months. Not one had asked how she was doing. Not one had offered help. She used to think connections were currency. Now she understood. Connections without respect are just names on a screen. Across the city, in a penthouse overlooking the financial district, Sam sat in his office. The walls were floor-to-ceiling glass. The view was unobstructed. The lights of the city stretched out like a constellation. He was reviewing a contract, a new development project. $120 million, 42 floors, residential and commercial. His phone buzzed, a message from Julia. Dinner tomorrow? I found a place you'll like. Sam smiled, typed back. Sounds good. 7? Perfect. He set the phone down, looked out at the city. He didn't think about Claire often, not because he was cruel, but because he'd already processed it. The anger, the disappointment, the grief. He'd audited it, cataloged it, filed it away, and moved forward. He didn't hate her. He pitied her. Because she would spend the rest of her life wondering what she lost. And he would spend the rest of his building something new. 1 year later, Claire sat in a Starbucks, waiting for a potential client. A small business owner who needed help with a marketing strategy. The pay was $500 for 2 weeks of work. She used to make that in an hour. The client arrived, a woman in her 40s. Kind eyes, tired smile. They shook hands, talked about the project. The woman seemed impressed. Your resume is really strong. Sterling and Hale is a big name. Claire forced a smile. It was a good experience. Why did you leave? Claire's chest tightened. She'd rehearsed this answer 100 times. I wanted to explore independent opportunities. The woman nodded. That's brave. Claire didn't feel brave. She felt hollowed out. The meeting ended. The woman said she'd be in touch. Claire knew she wouldn't be. She'd seen that look before. Polite, non-committal, final. Claire walked out of the Starbucks, stood on the sidewalk, watched people pass. Briefcases, tailored suits, confident strides. She used to be one of them. Now she was invisible. That night, Claire sat in her apartment. The TV was on, but she wasn't watching. Her phone buzzed. A notification. LinkedIn. Julia Reeves has a new post. Claire hesitated, then clicked. The post was a photo. Julia and Sam at a groundbreaking ceremony. A new building. Sterling and Hale's latest project. Julia's caption read, "Grateful to work with people who see value in collaboration, not competition. Here's to building something that lasts." Claire stared at the photo. Sam was in the background, not front and center, just there, supporting, steady, the way he always was. Claire closed the app, set the phone down, and realized something. She'd spent 5 years married to a man who built empires in silence, and she'd treated him like furniture, not because he was weak, but because she was blind. She hadn't lost Sam. She'd never really seen him. 2 years after the gala, Claire worked at a mid-sized consulting firm, junior associate, entry-level pay, long hours. She didn't complain. She couldn't afford to. One afternoon, she was walking to a meeting downtown. She passed a construction site, a massive tower, 42 floors, residential and commercial. A sign near the entrance read, Mercer Development Group, building the future. Claire stopped, stared at the sign. She pulled out her phone, searched. Mercer Development Group. The first result was a corporate website, sleek, professional, minimal. A photo of Sam on the leadership page, founder and principal investor. No ego, no theatrics, just the work. Claire stood on the sidewalk, watching cranes lift steel beams into the sky, watching workers move with precision and purpose, watching something being built that would outlast all of them, and she realized Sam didn't ruin her, she ruined herself. He just stopped protecting her from the consequences. She kept working, but never where it mattered. Every rejection was polite. Every email ended with the same line. We've decided to move in a different direction. And every time she saw a Mercer development sign, every time she passed a building he funded, every time she heard his name in a boardroom she'd never be invited into, she was reminded of the same moment. The night she introduced the source of her power as a driver, she lived in a prison of quiet sentences. If I had just treated him like a husband. If I had just looked at his eyes instead of his hands. If I had just answered the text. But she hadn't. And now she lived with the audit. Every single day. So here's the question I'll leave you with. If respect requires disclosure, was it ever respect at all? Or was Claire always going to see Sam as a shadow until the moment he became the sun? Some people say Sam was too harsh, that he should have told her who he was, that he should have warned her. But here's the thing. He did. Every time he corrected her work at 2 a.m., every time he absorbed a failure she never saw, every time he asked her to treat him like a partner, not a prop, he was showing her who he was. She just wasn't looking. The real damage wasn't losing the contract. It was realizing how long she'd been protected from herself. He hadn't just driven her to meetings. He had rewritten her mistakes before they reached the board. He hadn't just supported her career. He had signed the deals she couldn't close and absorbed the failures she never saw. He was never her driver. He was her shield. And now she's left with one truth she can't outsource or rewrite. She wasn't self-made. She was self-destroying. So drop your answer in the comments. Was Sam justified? Or did Claire deserve a second chance? And if you believe this story was worth your time, subscribe. Because the next story we uncover might be the one you need to hear.